to the Safe Space Podcast, episode 2. Building, our friends in the chat. So I get to get my DJ on today. What's going on, people? I am super excited for tonight's discussion, conversation. Man, it's going to go all the way up. I think what people need to know is that we are the Safe Space Podcast, put together by Music for Your Mental Health. We're an organization that's all about sharing music and mental health in safe spaces to promote communication skills and to promote healthy ways of healing and relating to others, your fellow man and woman. So I'm excited. I got the team in here and we have an incredible special guest. So what we usually like to do is start off the show with a check-in. And so what we're gonna do is have you say your name and we're gonna talk about our highs for the week and what we're doing for self-care for this week. We got the big CEO Haskell who just jumped in. So I will start us off and then I'm gonna definitely pass it to our guest, Chris. So I am J. Vincent B., the COO of Music for Your Mental Health. Man, my high for the week, we were just talking about my high for the week. I got a music placement on Law and Order Special Victims Unit. One of my songs that I produced and actually was able to be the artist on was placed. And so that was super dope to be on one of the longest running shows on the NBC network. So yeah, that was great. As far as self-care, I've been really mindful about exercising daily. And so I don't exercise for a long time, but I make the commitment to exercise just for about 15, 20 minutes each day. So I've been staying on that for this week. So I'm gonna pass it to Chris.
Nice. Hi, I'm Chris Cruz. A high for this week, it's not like my high, but one of my friends just put out their single called Tear Me Apart. Their name is Joshua, and that has just been very exciting to see your friend create something that is important and special to them. So it's been really cool and a high. I've been playing that around my apartment when I'm working or when I'm just doing anything. So that's a high. And then awesome. Self-care, I know. Self-care, I've been waking up every day at the same time, trying to get in a routine, stay consistent. And I start my morning off with stretching and drinking a bottle of water, and then taking a walk around the block. So that's helped me start my morning and start off a little bit more productive with the day. So those are my things. I don't know who I should pass it to. I feel like Sean's to my right, so I'll just pass it to Sean.
There you go.
Oh, cool. My high for this week has been getting more active this week. That's been my high. Finally made it back to the gym. Definitely trying to make a more concerted effort. This weather has been throwing us so many curveballs, so it's been hard to stay consistent, but working through that and getting back on the ball, staying active. So that's been my high this week. Self-care is definitely staying positive and surrounding myself with positive support. So yeah, I'm gonna pass it to our rock star Cherie, where you at, girl?
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Alicia Cherie, the CBO, or the Chief Brand Officer of Music for Your Mental Health. Highs for the week, man, there's been so many, but one in particular, we just locked in details for an out-of-state show. I'm not going to announce it just yet, but it's going to be a pretty amazing show in March. And so really excited about it and can't wait to share with everyone. Thanks, guys.
That's right.
And then self-care. I've been eating really healthy this week, like getting back on track with my diet. But I'm not gonna lie to y'all, when we get off this call, I'm definitely getting down on some wings because I feel like I earned it this week. But I've been pretty good with, eating very healthy, mostly vegan, whatever. But I'm getting down on some wings after this. So that's also a part of my self-care too. Sometimes you gotta treat yourself. Passing it to the CEO, Mr. Haskell Jackson.
Hey, I want to give a shout out to Rashid for those claps. It wasn't a tall order. Let me see. Hi for me. Well, getting the next studio ready. Went to see a couple of accomplishments with that. A low has been, me and the family has been sick, man. We've been down. For like the last 2 days, I've been in the bed. So today is my first day really being out and about. So these sound effects.
These sound effects are killing me.
Yo,
so fitting though.
Sound effects away from Jay. So yeah, that was a low. And then self-care. I haven't had a chance to go back to the gym within the last, 3-4 days because I was down. So, but other than that, I feel better. Today is my first day back, and good to see you guys' faces. Chris, it's good to meet you, and I'm just really excited about having you on today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Dope. Moving right along, Chris. We got to ask you, as you get ready to really let us know who you are, because we are music-based, we have to know, what is your relationship with music and mental health?
Okay. Well, to start, I can't sing. I like to sing around the house, but I don't know if anyone want to hear it. But growing up, I've always loved music and had some kind of connection with it, and have always felt it in a very emotional sense. And so I think over the years, with being more in tune with my emotions and my mental health, music has definitely played a big part and has helped me feel and express a lot of those emotions. If I'm not writing, I definitely am listening to music to feel better, whether that's if I'm sad or if I'm happy, whatever the case might be. But I definitely turn to music to stimulate and regulate my emotions. So my mental health and music are very closely tied.
Awesome. Well, let's let the people know a little bit more about who Chris Cruz is. I know a little bit. I know you're an amazing author, but let them know who you are, where you're from.
Okay, I'll give you the SparkNote version.
Okay.
So I was born in Columbus, Ohio, born and raised. I moved out here in 2023? I moved out here in 2018. Graduated with a BA in journalism and media communications, and then found myself in marketing and working as a project manager. And now I'm focusing on writing as an editorial content strategist for a mental health and wellness platform called 101 Life. T. Drew and Corey Lewis, they're the founders. They're great. They brought me in and it's just been amazing. But aside from writing and being an author and all that good stuff, I love just spending time outside, fitness, love sports, love music, love being with friends. And when I can, I love to travel. I love to travel back home to see my sisters and my grandmother, and just being around friends and having good food. So I'm with you on the wings. I think that also sounds delicious and you should treat yourself.
I'll save you a couple.
Okay, I'll be over there. I'll get some.
There you go. There you go. We also have some, I think we have some mutual friends. You know Hanani.
Oh, you know Hanani Taylor?
Yes.
Wait, okay. I went to middle school with her.
What?
So that's, yeah. We went to middle school together from like 6th to 8th grade. And then I believe she transferred schools in like 8th grade. But how do you know her? That's such a small world.
Haskell, do you want to speak about how we know Hanani?
That's so crazy because Hanani's picture came up on my screen as soon as you said Hanani. Literally, been knowing Hanani forever. She was my artist that I was producing. And man, I forgot how I met Hanani. But yeah, been working with Hanani forever. With music, her album. Really got close with her mom. And Shay came along, man, started working with Hanani as well. It's just a family affair. Like Hanani's been a part of our crew forever.
That's
Small world.
That's such a small world. I'm gonna have to message her. I haven't seen her since middle school, but now that we're like in the same city, I mean, I think she's in LA. I don't know. I follow her still. And I know
she's still here. She's still out here. Are you from Ohio?
I am. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes.
That's wild.
That's crazy, man. Small world.
Small world.
Yeah. But that's how I knew you were good people, because Hanani is super cool,
She's so
super
sweet.
sweet. It's like, okay, if Hanani's rocking with Chris is the truth.
Okay, I got a good word in for me.
So yeah, I want to talk about really the journey to writing your book, this book that you put together. I'll let you kind of tell people, first of all, the title of the book.
Yeah.
You owe it. Well, before I say it, you go ahead and say it.
you had it. But yeah, the title of my book is called You Owe It to Yourself. And it was very unexpected. I wrote it during quarantine because at the time I was trying to find an outlet because we couldn't go anywhere, and for me, I always had something to escape with. And when you're in the house and when everything shut down, there's no form of escapism. So I was trying to write and just was feeling a little stuck and had writer's block. And so I started creating these quotes that would come to me when I was either like feeling really low or just, if you've ever been there where like something just comes to you, like I gotta write it down. And so for me, I started writing those quotes and making posts on Instagram and saw that a lot of people were resonating and were really liking it. And so then something clicked in my head of like, oh, maybe I can make more of these and then, make them more detailed and have personal stories behind them. And so for me, that's kind of how it started. And I wasn't expecting to make a book about it, but the place that I was at in my life, I think for me personally, it was like my diary that I was just sharing with other people. And there was a lot of emotion and a lot of, I think, anxiety and just a lot of things I had shoved down that my body and my mind was like, you got to get it out somehow. Like, you're not going to feel better. This is not going to be good for you. Don't get it out. And so for me, it happened to come in the form of a book that just so happened to be shared with everybody. So it was very unexpected, but it definitely changed, I think, the course of how I thought about my mental health and how serious it was. And I think a lot of people during quarantine were faced with that. We couldn't do anything. And a lot of people, had to sit with their emotions, had to sit with things that they weren't talking about. And for me, that's kind of what it was. And I just had to get it out.
Yeah. And talk about sitting with your emotions.
Mhm.
There's so many different ways that could have went. So, like, if you could kind of take us through maybe your process as far as like, how do you know when it's time to write? Like, or how do you even process, your anxieties?
That's a big question, because I feel like now in my like 27th year of life, I think I've finally understood how to maybe like approach my emotions. But
Yeah.
usually when I'm feeling anxious or overwhelmed, I tend to shut down. That's like my go-to. And I've really been trying to not fall into that habit of just like escaping from my emotions. I think it's a little bit scary, for me at least, has been to actually feel emotions at a deeper level. I've had no problem doing it on the surface level, but like going deeper into those emotions can be uncomfortable and can be a little bit scary. And so for me, when I get that way, I've been trying to write. And my body always tells me. I always feel like my stress is heightened. I typically like don't sleep that well when I'm feeling that way. My appetite goes away. So those are signals personally for me. And so when I get that way, I really try to tell myself like, okay, Chris, like something's happening in your body. Take time to write it out and figure out what it is. And from there, just take it day by day. You don't have to solve it all at once, but at least getting it out and remembering that not all of my feelings and thoughts are true is always like the best starting place for me, because it helps me rationalize and make sense of it.
That's cool.
Awesome. That's awesome.
I don't want to pretty, but
well, we definitely got to hear an excerpt from the book before we end this interview. We got to hear something.
Okay, I got a book on the shelf, so I can bring it over and do a little story time.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll keep an eye on the time so we remember to do that. So we had an episode where we were actually talking about anxiety and depression, and we had our office rock star kind of dive into that, and she talked about how she dealt with her anxiety and depression. And for those people, I just had someone who hit me up before we even logged in, and they were curious about how to even begin to heal. And so what would be your words of encouragement? Like, how did you begin to heal? How did you know it was time?
I can give a little background too. I think I've always had anxiety to a degree. And I've talked about this before in a couple of videos that I've posted, but I've always kept it at bay. And it wasn't until like last September where I'm not quite sure, maybe just life. I had a lot going on, a lot of personal things, and it just like got to the point where it was not sustainable. And I hate self-diagnosing myself with things, because I typically do that a lot and I like work in extremes sometimes. But I've talked with my therapist, definitely have experienced like anxiety and like seasons of depression, and maybe even have like a generalized anxiety disorder. We've talked about that, and that's something that's not a shock to me, but I think I definitely had like a breakdown and like kind of felt like an identity crisis throughout that time. And it wasn't until like really beginning of this month, I felt like I could breathe again. And for me, I had never felt, I think, that much weight when it came to anxiety. Like it felt very debilitating for me. And I struggle. I think a lot of my anxiety has come from people pleasing and just like this perfectionism, and then never feeling like I've hit the mark with work or with relationships or, whatever it might be. And so that took a toll on my mental health. And I was talking to my therapist, and we were talking about healing, and I was saying, like, I don't want to use healing as a punishment. I feel like I course correct so much to the point where that healing doesn't feel like it's for me. I feel like it's healing for other people to then reinforce the idea of being a people pleaser. And so for me, I knew when it was time to heal was I felt like I didn't know myself. And that's not a fun place to be. I don't want to live life like that, just, aimlessly walking and being like, oh, I have to be this way for other people. And I think that's what I started to realize, like, this healing cannot be spread out. Like, it has to be within yourself and for you. And that made me feel so much better. And even talking to my therapist, she had said something really simple to me one day that gave me a lot of encouragement. And it was just like, you're safe. You don't have to worry about all these other things. Like, I tend to over intellectualize things. And she was like, just take a breath, just calm down. And hearing her say, like, you're safe, you're human, even though that was like such a simple statement, brought me so much encouragement, because it just reminded me, like, we don't have to do all these things that we think we need to do. And like, we don't have to make this healing process something that's just so strenuous and so exhausting, when you can literally just be. And so for anyone who's struggling with healing, I would say just take it a step at a time. You don't have to make it a 9-to-5 job. I definitely would say, like, be aware of the things you need to heal, and make sure that's coming from a place of love and not self-criticism. You can't hate yourself into loving yourself or feeling better. But just taking it a step at a time, and understanding that there's no blueprint for life. So we're going to make mistakes. We're going to go through a lot of things that are going to not be, that favorable or exciting or always happy, but they're lessons learned, and you're not on a timeline of anyone else, just yours. So that would be the encouragement I would give to people, is just take it slow, breathe, and remember that you're safe.
Wow. I love that. I think I'm trying to, as you said the word safe, and we're in a safe space, it just made me think, like, how often do we tell ourselves that we're safe? In a society that is telling us the complete opposite at all times. How often is our inner monologue reminding us of our own safety? So I think that's incredibly important to remember. I need to remember, the safety that just comes with being. So thank you for that. You spoke about a breakdown that kind of triggered, your healing process. Do you still experience breakdowns, and if so, how are you dealing with them when they come?
Yeah. So like I had never really experienced that many breakdowns. I think growing up, just the way that I told myself to be and like the expectations I thought I had of myself, I would present myself as very like stoic and would only show emotions that I thought were appropriate. So that would just like be happiness or, nothing else. And I remember I had a breakdown in college, and maybe breakdown's not like the right word, but it felt like a breakdown to me. Where I just like cried for like a long time. And for me, that was such a release. And then that was when I was like 20. And then I had another one at 25. And then another one, as we just heard, like that just ended not too long ago. And I was telling a friend that it was kind of just like the levee, like just like burst. Like I just like could not contain anything. And I felt really out of control because I was so great about regulating my emotions, or at least feeling like I did a good job. I had always understood like some of my triggers, or I had always understood, my emotional intelligence to a degree. And I thought that was enough. And then when you don't get those feelings out, when you don't go deeper and actually feel those feelings, it catches up to you. And for me, there was just like no space left to hold that. Like my body was like, you gotta get it out. And so I had many a nights where I was like, I feel out of control. Like, I feel like I cannot control my emotions. And I told my therapist that I was like afraid of like my emotions. I was afraid of like my own like mental space and like being within my own body. And that was something that I had never experienced before. And after we talked about it, she was like, I think this feels abnormal for you because you are not used to showing your emotions in this way. So it's not a bad thing, but you've just never experienced it. And so it feels so heightened for you. And so for me, that breakdown was necessary for my healing, or that continued healing. I've been trying to heal, for some time now, but letting those feelings out has been really great because there's no way to keep those in. It weighs on you emotionally, it weighs on you physically, mentally. And for me, I got to that point. And looking back on it now, there are moments I felt embarrassed. So I was like, why are you crying so much? Like, get a grip. Like, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. But in hindsight, I'm like, you needed to get that out to feel because you're human. And there's nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing wrong with vulnerability and with that expression. And so for me, that breakdown was very necessary. And when I feel that breakdown about to come or after a breakdown, I'm very gentle with myself now of like, okay, that happened. It might happen again at some point, but I have to learn how to manage that better and just not sit in those feelings all the time, but sometimes like sit beside them. And I think that's a lesson that I'm learning as well, is just like, feel the feels. That's what being human and the human experience is. So don't be afraid to have a moment or to be ugly or whatever you want to call it. That's what I've learned too, is like, not everything's going to be pretty. And that's unrealistic to think that every day of your life is going to look the same and pretty every day. So I hope I answered your question. I feel like I just rambled.
No, you answered the question for
Okay.
sure. You definitely answered the question. Sean, Pascal, Alicia, did you want to add to any of that or have any questions?
Yeah, I wanted to ask, Chris, do you have siblings?
I do. I have 2 older sisters. So I'm the baby of the family. And then I have, my father also has 2 younger children, but they're all in the Midwest.
So being the baby of the family, would they treat you like a baby or were they hard on you?
I feel like it was a mixture of both, but more so like I was treated like the baby. Like they were hard on me, when they needed to be, but other times they were like, oh, that's the baby. Like, they would take care of me, and they're still very protective of me. So yeah.
Yeah.
It was a good balance.
Were you able to share your feelings, like when you were like going through things? Were you able to share those things with your family, or were you private and secretly dealing with things and maybe you felt ashamed to share? Or how did you deal with some of those things?
Yeah, I would say I was private for the most part. I think mainly just because that's just like, I just tried to figure it out on my own. And I was like, no, I'll be independent. Like everyone's got their own things going on. But luckily, even though I'm away from them, I have like a really solid support system here. And so over time, I was able to open up to them, but also over time with my siblings, we've had many moments where we've shared like how we feel, been very emotional together. And that's been really nice. I mean, I was home for Christmas and at one point I cried in front of my sisters and I was like, this would never have happened years ago. But they've held a space for me to do that. They're my best friends. So it's been really nice to be able to grow into that. And when you have siblings, it's funny, the relationships change. I don't know if any of y'all have.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
When I was younger, could not stand my sister. If they watch this, I'll talk to them about it. But especially with sisters, like you are always like at it, like always finding something to fight about. And it's just nice seeing that progression when you get older of like, I love you. Like, this is nice that we have this relationship and we can talk. And so I really valued and appreciated that. And I know if I need to go to them that I can, and vice versa. So it's been really nice. Yeah.
It's good stuff.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's awesome. And what was that process like? Like the holding of space, like did that just gradually happen? Did it surprise you? Like
I wouldn't say, I think maybe I was surprised in a way of like when I spoke up about it, I was expecting them to not understand. But my middle sister is 29, and then my oldest sister is 31. And so when I said it to them, I was expecting them to like not get it. But they've already lived those years that I'm like in right now. And they're like, no, like we get it. We've been there. So it was a nice release and relief to be like, oh, okay, it's not as bad as I was making it, or like, creating in my head, like catastrophizing it. So it was nice to be able to just like be like, I'm admitting this and I feel safe doing so, and y'all have validated me. And that felt really good.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I think you said something really, really dope that that our listeners definitely need to hear. You said when you came out here, you built a village, a support system. How did you go about doing that?
Well, luckily, before I moved out, I had a few friends that I had met like when I came out through mutual friends who no longer live in California. They moved back to the Midwest.
Yeah.
So when I came to visit, I like made connections with them that just happened to stay. And so I like moved out. They knew I didn't really have anybody, family nor friends. And so they really welcomed me in to like their homes and in their spaces. And I have two really close friends out here who invite me to like all of their family functions. And like, I've been friends with them for almost like 8 years now, which is really crazy to think about. And then also like the experiences that I've had with working. I know a lot of people don't typically make friends at work, but I've also made a handful of friends at all the jobs that I've had who have become really close to me. And that's been something really special. So it's like, I met them and then I'm meeting their friends. And it's just like really nice to now have that community of people. And it's just nice to see that it worked out that way. And I'm not sure if it would have worked if I didn't know like a lot of those people before I moved. But they've like really welcomed me with open arms. And that has been like really, really nice. I know my family was like very nervous for me to come out here, especially my grandma. She's like, you're not going to know anybody. Like, how are you gonna like get around and like do all these things? And I was just like, I'm not sure, but luckily we're here and it's been really fun. And I've met so many great people.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I think a lot of it has to do with the energy you put out too. Mm-hmm. Like, I know, when I met you, like, we hugged instantly. Like, you were like an immediate family member. Like, it's like, it's hard not to get along with you. Like, it's hard not to get along with you. So I think having, your energy and have you always been this way? Like, have you always been just like extra nice and open and friendly, or was this?
I think I have. I mean, over the years, I've definitely like, I think become more of an introvert, and maybe I've always been like an extroverted introvert in some way. But a lot of people say that, And I don't know if it's like the Midwest in me, because when you go to the Midwest, at least in Ohio, everyone is like very sweet and nice. And I feel like that's just how like I was raised and what I was accustomed to. And so like when I moved out here, everybody was like, bro, what are you doing? You're talking to strangers. Like, we would never do that. And I'm just like, I guess that's just how I am. But yeah, I guess so.
It's like, yeah, she's definitely not from here.
No, yeah, everyone can tell.
When my wife moved here from I met her in Utah, brought her out here in Utah. So as soon as she got out here, she was waving and talking to everybody. I'm like, man, you can't do that. Until one day, she waved and smiled at a guy at a gas station. And the old boy was like, what up? Like, yo. He was like, I'm just saying hi. I was like, I told you.
Yeah.
It's not being mean, but you gotta, you know, you watch, you can't be smiling and waving and toodaloo. They gonna be like, yo, what's cracking? So you learned your lesson too, huh?
I have. Luckily, with the masks during COVID, I mean, we're still obviously dealing with COVID, but the masks, that helped me avoid a lot of conversations. Like, I would go to the store and be like, I'm just trying to get in, get out, had AirPods in, glasses, and I'm like, this is not so bad.
Yes.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, we still got a little bit of time. So I think this is the perfect time to give you a second to grab that book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go behind the bars with the book.
Let's go behind the bars.
Yay.
Okay.
The book,
Story
the
time,
book, where the book
children.
at?
Okay, I'll grab it. Give me a
Okay.
moment.
Cool.
Jay, you got the behind the bars drop?
Yeah.
Come on, Rashid.
Come on, Jay. Let's. Oh.
Yo.
Is that a tall order?
This one ain't a tall deal. Let's get it.
It's a tall order.
That's a tall order, sir. We're a safe space now.
All right. Here's the, I know it's probably, you can't read it because I'm facing it a different way, but
Nah, you good.
how do you want me just to read like a prompt or like a quote? How do you want me to do this? I don't want to be
Whatever you feel led to read, whatever has meaning for you.
let me just skim through real fast.
Okay.
See which one is speaking to me. Oh, okay. I have this one. This is what started it all. So I'll read this one. But this quote says, "Remember to water your garden. You can't bloom if you don't tend to yourself." And so I feel like that's very aligned with self-care and my mental health. For a long time, I just avoided it. I felt that if I was helping people or, doing all these things that would make me feel better, and it wasn't. Like it did to an extent, but I was like, you're still not taking care of yourself though. And I feel like that's what quarantine and like the start of this book really taught me, is to remember to tend to my garden. I wasn't seeing any growth, and I wasn't fully accepting myself or knowing myself because I kept avoiding getting to know who I was and pouring into that and watering myself. So I feel like that quote in particular is always one that stands out to me, and it's just a reminder to not neglect yourself and your mental health and your emotions as well. And that's not to say you have to ignore everybody or the people you care about, but sometimes you gotta take time for yourself, because you can't be anything to anyone unless you're something to yourself first. So
That's it.
that's all I got.
That was fire.
That was great. Man. Well, You know what, Chris? We can't let you go without asking you a very important question.
Come on.
Well, two questions. First, you did mention that you had a therapist, which is awesome. How long have you been seeing your therapist, and what kind of pushed you toward making that decision for yourself?
Yeah, so I've been seeing her for, I think, 4 years now. Yeah, I know she's probably sick of me. She's great. I've just getting to different stages of therapy with her has been so great. And you would think that after a while you wouldn't have anything to talk about within 4 years, but you do. And for me, I felt like what I was doing personally wasn't enough. I could write all day long about my feelings and my emotions. And for me, I just needed more support because I wasn't also understanding oh, how can I see this beyond myself? I need someone who's objective for the thoughts that I have. Because I think I was saying earlier too, I catastrophize a lot of things. And that's something that I've really been working on. And so having a therapist to talk to has really helped me see oh, this is normal. This is not so bad. And she helps bring more structure to me and my thinking. She doesn't completely heal me or cure me, which is, I don't believe is the point of therapy, to go to be fully healed. I think it's mainly to go to have someone help you through these processes and to help guide you in the right direction and to help make more sense of the madness. At least for me, that was what it's like. But yeah, 4 years going on to 5, and it's been really great. And I wouldn't say I was embarrassed to go to therapy, but I think around the time that I was going, there was a lot of stigma around it still maybe. And especially within the Black community, or, just in our circles, sometimes therapy is very taboo. And so for a long time, I did not tell anybody that I was in therapy. I didn't tell anybody that I was considering, oh, maybe I can get medication or antidepressants. I had never told anybody that because it just seemed very off base and a touchy subject. But yeah, I felt like I was losing a lot of myself and just felt very confused, and having her come and help me brought a lot more stability and structure, which is, really important when you're talking about mental health and how to see things clearly and in a way that's not just in your head.
Yeah.
How did you find your therapist? Was it a recommendation, or did you do some research?
So before her, she wasn't my first therapist. I actually had I had 2 therapists before her, and they were fine. I just wasn't getting what I needed. And so I was I need to find someone else who might be more suited to help with my specific needs. And so I actually went on Psychology Today and, filled out information about my location, insurance, what I was struggling with at the time to make it more specific to find a therapist. Because, they have trauma therapists, cognitive behavioral therapists. And so it really helps you narrow down. And she just happened to be in my location, and I clicked on her, sent her a message, and I was I need to talk to you. So if you could help, that'd be great.
The rest is history.
Yeah. And then the rest is history. That's all she wrote. Yeah. And they have so many
Thanks
other.
for sharing.
Of course. Yeah.
You were saying they have so many other what?
Resources. After I found Psychology Today, I started following a lot of other resources online and on Instagram, Therapy for Black Girls. I follow. I'm not quite sure if they have a directory of therapists. I can't remember, but there's so many platforms that kind of help guide you in those directions of finding a therapist in your area, or even telehealth. And even if you don't have insurance, it's really nice if they have sliding scale options all those things are other resources. And when I wasn't doing therapy, I was supplementing it with like Calm or Headspace or, you know, some of those apps too, to at least have something to ground me in that way as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Stevie, our man, I forgot what Stevie does. I always forget what Stevie does.
Clinical director. Clinical
Sorry,
director.
Stevie.
I mean,
Shout outs to Stevie.
But he was
Missy, man.
he was shouting himself out in the chat as a therapist as well. He is a unicorn. It's apparently, you know, there aren't very many Black male therapists, and you hit the nail on the head with the stigma. How do you deal with the stigma now? I know on our end, it seems like it's becoming more acceptable. What are you experiencing on your end?
Yeah, I think it's been more acceptable, especially with COVID. Like I can't say if it would have been acceptable without that, but I think a lot of people were really struggling with their mental health and really turned to therapy. And so I feel as though now it's been more acceptable. And I mean, I can only speak from my experience as a Black woman, and I've just been in spaces with other people of color and women, and it makes it easier hearing about their experiences. Like we're not as alone as we think we are. And so that's been like really helpful to know that there's always, you know, someone, or there's always someone having conversations like these, which is really helpful. And I think it's just a means of stepping out and like seeking that help or being able to feel that support from other people. And so that's been my experience. And I think platforms like this and hearing other people share their stories has made me feel very comfortable talking about my experiences as well. I'm not completely an open book with certain things, but it's been easier for me to be a little bit more vulnerable. And it's been nice hearing, like when I share something, other people are like, oh my goodness, like I'm going through that too. And I'm like, oh, I'm not alone. So like, that's like encouragement enough to like keep going and to keep sharing and to know like we're all going through this together. Like not every experience, of course, is linear, but mental health, everyone is experiencing that in some way or another. And I think it's just nice that we have moments like this and, you know, that's becoming more acceptable and I don't even want to say appropriate to talk about, but just like more acceptable and people feel safe enough to do so. And so I hope these discussions continue for sure.
I do too. I do too. Like we have to normalize these conversations. It's our gift to the generations that will come after us and the generations, you know, before us who didn't feel comfortable, you know, being able to talk about their feelings. It just wasn't a thing. So, you know, thank you so much, Chris, for joining us and sharing your story. Everybody, make sure that you go check out You Owe It to Yourself. Is there any other shout outs that you want to give?
Can you see that book cover?
You want to see it again?
Come on.
Yeah, let me see this.
My friend, actually, this project was also really exciting because two of my friends who I met through work helped me edit and create this. So my friend Raquel Gonzalez, she created all of the artwork. And then my friend Catherine Ross, who's an editor, she has a site called, I'm sorry, Catherine, I'll put it in the chat. I can't remember your business name at the moment. Oh, Created to Create. And she's an editor for that. And she's so incredible and like really helped bring this to life and really push me to be more open and honest and not to hide behind it. So I'll give a shout out to them. And also just like all my friends and my family who have encouraged me to keep sharing and to feel comfortable and confident enough to keep doing it. So this is the first book of many. So hopefully, I'm gonna manifest that.
Yes. Now we really thank you for being vulnerable. Stevie mentioned that in the chat as well. Thanks you for being open and vulnerable with us, to share your story. That's what we're here for. So we love that.
Thank you for allowing me to share. And for listening to me talk for almost an hour.
An hour flies by, it goes that fast.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
So the final question: what music, what song has helped you get through any one of your breakdowns, or just what song comes to mind when it comes to getting through?
Okay. So this one's like more upbeat, but actually there's a couple, but this one came to mind. So I'll share the first one and the second one. Brighter Days by Kirk Franklin. That is always like my go-to. I'm like, I need some upbeat, have my AirPods in if I'm having like a day that really brightens me. And then my second song, this was like my most played song of 2021 or 2021. I forget when it came out, but Good Days by SZA. I was playing that every day. I was like, I believe in Good Days, SZA. I'm gonna keep believing in it. So that was like, I don't remember, like, the Spotify Wrapped. Like, I already knew it was coming, but I was low-key embarrassed because I had listened to that, like, I forget what the stat was. I think it was like 400 times or more. And I sent a screenshot to my friend. They were like, girl, what were you going through? And I was like, I don't know.
Who's feeling that song?
Wow.
I was. Those are my two that came to mind first. I'm sure there's other songs, but those for sure were two that held it down.
Nice.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this has been another Safe Space podcast with the Music for Your Mental Camp. Haskell, any shouts out? Alicia, S. Dot.
Yo, shout out to Chris for bringing that love to the family.
Yeah.
We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Keep
I
doing your
second
thing.
that. Shout out.
We want to encourage you that, we're here for you, and we're an extension of your already made village. And now you have more people to share with and lean on if you ever need.
Thank you. I appreciate that so much. Seriously. That's so sweet.
Well, go ahead and ride out.
Enjoy your chicken wings.
Oh, I will. Trust me.
It's lit.
Yo.
Oh, we got to end up with SZA. I love this.
Of course.
Vibe.
Good day in my mind, safe to take a step out, get some air now, let your edge out. To some iceberg, you'll be heavy in my mind. Can you get the heck out? I need rest now, got me bummed out. You so you, baby, baby, baby. I've been on my empty mind, shit. I should've kept from losing the best in me. I worry that I wasted the best in me. Oh, yeah, baby, you don't care. So now I'm trying to be a nuisance, it's just urgent. Trying to make sense of little change, got me a war in my mind. Gotta let go and wait, can't keep what's holding me. Choose the right, but it will pick up in front of me. All the while, I'll wave my arm and feel with a smile. Still wanna try, still believe in good days. Always inside, good that they're in my mind. Tell me I'm not my fears, my limitations. I disappear if you let me. Feeling like Jericho, feeling like Joe when he lost his shit. Gotta hold my own, my cross to bear a long night. Ooh, way to dip, way to kill the mood. No, you that shit can't groove it, baby, baby. Heavy on my empty mind, shit. I gotta keep from losing the rest of me. Still worried that I wasted the best of me on you, babe. You don't care. Sometimes trying to be a nuisance, it's just urgent. Trying to make sense of little change, got me a war in my mind. Gotta let go away, can't keep what's holding me. Choose the right, but it will pick up in front of me. All the while, I wave my arm and feel with a smile. Still wanna try, still believe in good days. Always sunny inside, good that devils in my mind. Gotta get right, tryna free my mind before the end of the world. I don't miss no ex, I don't miss no text. They choose not to respond. I don't regret, just pretend